Welcome to our session on feedback, honest, helpful, and welcome feedback. This session focuses on feedback within the Ohio improvement process, but the principles covered can be applied to many other areas: general feedback to teachers, feedback to students, professional, and personal. By the end of this session, you will be able to answer these questions. What is mastery-oriented or constructive feedback? What are the elements of constructive feedback? How can I reframe feedback into more constructive, less judgmental statements? We give and get feedback all the time. Someone smiles at you. You honk your horn at someone. You get a grade on a paper or a smiley face on your lesson plans. Your contribution to the carry-in was gone first, or you end up taking it all home to the family. All of these are examples of feedback, and while most make you feel good or bad, they don't give you much information beyond that. Effective feedback needs to not only let you know if you are doing well or not, but it needs to provide information to help you improve in whatever you are doing: driving, your lesson plans, your cooking. If you Google types of feedback, you will get a variety of answers, but to me it all boils down to three main types. Positive, that smiley face on your BLT form. Negative, a frowny face on your lesson plans. Constructive, notes on your work pertaining to the content and how to make it even better. Katie Novak calls this mastery-oriented feedback, and we have a video example. After we watch this, I'm going to ask you to think about what you notice. Watch closely. It's only about 2.5 minutes long. If you click in the middle of the image, it should get the video started for you. You may need to turn up your volume. Some parts of it are a little difficult to understand. My apologies if that was difficult for you to understand. That is the best version of that we can get. So what did you notice? What are some key points? Things I noticed are that the positive feedback made the batter feel good, but it didn't really help her game. She was going to do exactly the same thing again, even though it didn't work. This probably made the coach feel good too. It's nice to make people happy. The negative feedback made the batter cry, but didn't help her game. This may have also made the coach feel good. Gotta teach him a lesson. Feedback that was instructive and supportive was what worked best. John Hattie has written a great deal on feedback in schools, and based on his analysis, it has a 0.7 effect size. Remember, 0.4 is holding steady at a year's growth, so anything over that is a bonus. He says the feedback equation is: what did students do? How could they do it better? The same applies to adults and teams. Feedback is: what did they do? How could they do it better? We are sometimes very good with the first piece and not so good with the second. That's what we're going to work on. Whether we're talking children or adults, effective feedback is effective feedback. There are 4 ways you can use feedback to help teams, adults, students, spouses, children. These are affirming what they did well, correcting and directing, pointing out the process, coaching to critique their own efforts. With this in mind, deciding how to give effective feedback becomes a little more complex. When making your choice, you need to consider the nature of the task, the ability and experience level of the team members. So what is a good structure for feedback? You have 10 feedback examples from Region 14 in your Schoology folder. These are for your final activity, but after this slide, if you want to look at those examples, they're available to you. You'll notice when you look at feedback examples, the format and structure of the feedback is different based on who is writing it and the relationship the author has with the receiver of the feedback. It is helpful to the person providing feedback and the person receiving it to have a consistent format. The structure helps the giver frame comments in their head during the meeting and allows the receiver to know where to look for certain pieces of information. I have gone from a narrative format for feedback after taking a lot of notes in the meeting when I first started providing feedback to a reinforcement refinement structure for most districts. For some districts, I will just share my chart with them that I took notes on during the meeting. This slide shows a few of those feedback taking structures that members of our team use. There is nothing wrong with positive feedback, as long as it is paired with some constructive pieces. If you want to get people's attention, tell them something they did well, and sometimes why it is important that they did that. This is helpful when it's a new skill. One very difficult piece is keeping it objective and trying not to put feeling words into your feedback. So, for a positive statement, everyone was on time for your meeting, rather than, I was glad to see everyone was on time. Whether or not you are glad really shouldn't be a factor. A constructive piece, this shows they know it is important and value this collaboration time. Or a positive with a why follow-up question. Everyone had data to share. Do you think the accountability piece of knowing they had to share their data is one reason everyone had it this week? That kind of implies that we all know they didn't all have it last week, but you don't have to say it that directly. My goal is to always find more positives or areas of reinforcement than areas of refinement, not so positives. Initially, you may have to work on shallow skills. There was an agenda. Everyone was on time. Roles were assigned. The team members are cooperative and willing to share. I use that one a lot in the beginning. As teams are getting their process started, these are important things that need to be done, and teams should receive acknowledgement for doing them. If, however, this is still your feedback in April, the team may need more support to move forward. These are some examples, and you can read most of them on your own. One I'm going to pull out is great agenda, or just giving someone that thumbs up emoji. Try saying, having an agenda helped the team know the structure of the meeting. That lets them know why it was a great agenda. And the I really like your meetings? That's a harder one. I've used the joy in this team is contagious. I look forward to their energy and work ethic each week. With most of the meetings that I am asked to be part of, there also needs to be some serious correcting and directing or areas of refinement feedback. For areas of refinement, I look for pieces that relate to the OIP process that were not up to snuff. My main purpose is to help you implement OIP so all students will benefit. I will admit I stray off a pure process sometimes, but I work hard to keep the focus on things that impact students. If you're providing feedback in a specific area, that would be your focus and maybe not so much the process. Remember, you need to keep this objective and non-judgmental. Saying several team members were in and out of the meeting often, for 5 to 10 minutes. This sometimes stalled conversation or caused decisions to be rehashed when they returned. That's not judgmental, that's a statement. A follow-up question could be, does this happen often? Is there a more convenient time for this meeting so everyone can devote the full 2 hours to the work? Positive refinement and correcting. The team looked at several data sources and the students in each tier, but they didn't link this student data to adult behaviors in the classroom. Do you think the team needs more guidance and perhaps additional training to be able to move to the adult piece? Or did they just run out of time? Another example, the team discussed PBIS incentives, but conversation stalled when the issue of how to pay for the incentives arose. So I've added a resource. I mentioned the attached resource, No Salt, No Sugar, No Money, at the meeting as a place to find incentives that may be more affordable to implement. In this instance, I would also attach a link to that resource. As I said, my goal is always to find more positives or areas of reinforcement than areas of refinement, not so positives. I try to keep it to 2 to 3 refinements. No one wants a list of 8 things they did wrong, no matter how nicely you say it. I also watch these refinements and make note if they are accomplished at the next meeting, so I can point them out as reinforcements. It's okay to go slow. Target issues that can easily be addressed and offer resources and help if possible. Some examples, most of which you can read on your own, but one of my favorites, instead of saying you should have an agenda for these meetings, which has happened, saying it as, do you think having an agenda would help the team keep moving so all items are addressed within the hour? Kind of puts the weight on the purpose of the agenda and not just you need to have it because it's on some magical box of things you're supposed to have in meetings. You can read those other examples for yourself. If part of your job is to coach teams within the OIP structure, one of the biggies is if the team isn't using the 5-step process, I always try to encourage it. I'll attach the agenda or note-taking tool and reference the ODE website resources in the feedback if necessary. If they are using the process, and most are, the feedback needs to push the team closer to analysis and deeper reflection. Some examples, each TBT shared what strategy they are using, but not the impact it is having on achievement. Tying the adult implementation to student outcomes will allow the team to see which strategies need to be refined or used in more content areas. TBT members agreed to a strategy, but based on the conversation, I'm not certain they are all implementing it the same way. What do you see on walkthroughs in their classrooms? I'll admit this is a bit passive-aggressive because sometimes when I say that, I do so because I know whoever I'm talking to aren't in teams and they're not in classrooms, so I'm making a point that they should be. Implementing with fidelity, OIP has been shown to have a positive impact on student achievement. So when we're coaching the process, here are some examples of ways to address things you see happening. So if there is an incomplete agenda lacking roles and timelines, phrasing in the feedback could be, how do you think the team would respond to an agenda with time listed for each item to help the team accomplish the assigned tasks in one meeting? You're asking a probing question. You're trying to help people think about their process as they move forward. You can read those other examples on your own. Ultimately, the goal is that teams or teachers or students or your spouse can give feedback to each other so an administrator or SST consultant doesn't have to be at every meeting. A well-functioning team can give feedback to each other. To move a team to this point, it is helpful to use coaching. Coaching is similar to the questions asked in the feedback examples earlier. Remember the video? You don't have to be mean. Honest and factual feedback is what will help, even if it hurts. Unless everything is entirely rainbows and unicorns, you shouldn't be telling a team that it is. We can all improve. Someone who provides feedback is essentially a coach for the receiver of the feedback, letting them know how they are doing with implementing whatever they're working on. So you can kind of go down the list with me, and I'm going to describe some of these. Trust is essential for coaching work. If I do not trust the person I'm talking to as the person being coached, I won't tell them the real problems. I'll put on a show. Coaching is a reflective self-improvement process. It is not the coach telling the teacher or student what to do. There's a time for that, but it's not coaching. Coaching is difficult to do if someone is also the direct supervisor, the evaluator who determines if someone retains their job. It is best if the coach can be a critical friend. If that doesn't work, whoever is doing the coaching evaluating role needs to be very clear with everyone. Right now I'm being a coach. Right now I'm being an evaluator. This person is also the person who asks questions. The purpose of coaching is to help the team, teacher, student look at a problem and determine what they will try to solve it. A coach is not supposed to be the one who tells them what to do. This can be really hard for some of us coaches because if you've been around a while, you probably have some great ideas about what the team should do. But as a coach, it's your job to help them determine what they should do. This makes it their idea, not what you told them to do. You're a good listener who asks questions. Then shut up and listen. If you need to take notes to keep you from speaking out loud, perfectly acceptable. A coach is also someone who prompts new practices. As long as the team's idea isn't dangerous, illegal, or unethical, let them try it. It may work and surprise you. That's happened to me a few times. It may also fail, in which case the team will have learned a valuable lesson, no one died, and you coach them to look at why it failed and what they need to do next. Coaches are also facilitators of opportunities. You provide resources, information, and connections. I usually call through the resources I'm sharing, so I'm sharing 2 or 3 good pieces of information rather than what they could find on a Google search. Ultimately, the team needs to do some of the work to be invested. I hope you found the last 15 minutes valuable and that you can now answer the questions: what is mastery-oriented constructive feedback? What are the elements of constructive feedback? And how can I reframe feedback into more constructive, less judgmental statements? And I hope you can do those things because you're going to have to in a few minutes. Simon Sinek is a leadership guru, professor at Columbia University, founder of Sinek Partners, Corporate Refocusing, and an author. He is best known for popularizing the concept of the golden circle and start with why. He's also an adjunct professor and staff member at the Rand Corporation, and he still needs feedback. He still wants feedback. He is not perfect. This is a short YouTube video about being the receiver of feedback. I hope you found this information informative and you enjoyed the session. You do have a final project because this was about 16 to 20 minutes long and you're getting an hour of credit. Included in the Schoology session folder is a collection of 10 examples of feedback SST consultants have given to TBTs, BLTs, and DLTs this year. I would like to acknowledge and thank my colleagues who said, sure, take some of my feedback. And I did. I would like you to choose 2 pieces of this feedback and critique the author's use of the principles in this session using the form provided. Constructive, asking questions, keeping personal feelings out of it. Using the principles in this session, provide feedback for me also on the presentation, the session, and the materials. This is the first time I've done a virtual session. And while I've done sessions before on feedback, this is the first time I've presented this one in this way. If there's something I need to fix, tell me, I can take it. Submit your feedback in Schoology by June 29th. This is required to receive session credit. Finally, thank you very much for taking this session, and if you know others who would find it valuable, please pass the information along and send them this way. Please complete the session evaluation in your Schoology folder. Completion of the evaluation is required for you to receive your certificate of completion. Certificates will be emailed to participants in early July. Thank you for taking part in this session. Enjoy the rest of your virtual conference experience.